This film begins after Battle of New York, where it is shown that after the destruction of the Chitauri armies, building then much rubbish is spread throughout New York. Adrian is assigned a duty to clean up that waste. He is the main antagonist of this movie, who is also known by the name Vulture here. But some members of Department of Damage Control are approached there. Coming there, they say to Adrian, "It is our duty exactly after this. You may leave with your team. It will be our department who will hold the charge of this location." It is also revealed here. This department belongs to Tony Stark, not with anyone else. It is seen here that Adrian and his team had no task to do now, so they bring some waste material from their after picking. Meanwhile, Adrian's team also knows that there were also some illegal weapons of Chitauri army in their brought waste material. After this, Adrian's team starts their investigation on this waste material, and they also try to create some new weapons among those old ones. Then movie story takes place 8 years later. Tony Stark is seen here, who gets knowledge about Peter Parker, who is the leading character of this movie named Spider-Man, because one of the videos of Peter Parker had gone viral on social media. Tony Stark meets Peter Parker here. It was the same time when Tony Stark had to build a great team against US battle. So he tells Spider-Man about this project meeting him, whereas Tony Stark was only intended to know how much abilities that Peter Parker possesses, how much excellence he can show. Tony Stark drops Peter Parker at his home after a short conversation. Moreover, Tony Stark also gives him his new suit. Peter Parker feels excitement getting this suit, and he was also not focusing on his school because of this, and he begins to perform his duties there as being Spider-Man. He had started to help the people in his city now. He went to help the people where he detects the wrongdoings. While walking, he witnesses some robbers in the bank, who were robbing the bank. At the same time, Spider-Man reaches there to stop them. Spider-Man finally teaches those robbers a lesson after a great fight, and he makes them arrest the police. Later, Spider-Man moves back to his house. His close friend was already at his home when Peter Parker reaches there. His friend is left shocked while witnessing him the suit of Spider-Man. He was shocked on this as his friend is Spider-Man, whereas Peter Parker did not want this, as his secret of Spider-Man may reveal before anyone. But this secret had been exposed before his friend, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Now, Peter includes his friend as his team member. They both devote themselves in trying to rescue the world. On the other side, Adrian's team comes on the scene, who set out to sell the illegal weapons to the criminals after making the weapons. It is known here that Adrian's team had arrived to sell the weapons to some criminals. Then, Spider-Man also enters at the exact moment. Spider-Man makes all the criminals flee from there after hitting, and two bargainers of illegal weapons who came there. They were thinking as their third man is with Spider-Man, so they try to kill their third partner. In the meantime, Spider-Man rescues that man, and he makes both of them flee after teaching them lesson. At the same time, Vulture also reaches there, which is known that he is Adrian. There is occurred a fight between Spider-Man and Adrian. Being more powerful, Vulture throws Spider-Man into the water after picking him up. Spider-Man tries to open his parachute there, but he remains entangled in his parachute and does not get courage to come outside. Now the moment had arrived that Spider-Man was facing short breath in the water, and he was going to lose his breath. Meanwhile, a robotic armor of the Iron Man reaches there, and he rescues Spider-Man. This robot belonged to Tony Stark, and he says to Spider-Man, "You have not changed into Avenger in a complete form. You should take care of yourself. You should not indulge in a risky matter until your powers may not increase perfectly. In this way, I will not come here every time to rescue you." It is seen on the opposite side that Adrian had ordered his team to sell the illegal weapons, in which they had not got success. Adrian flies into rage on this, and he kills his own team member. The reason behind his killing was this. Adrian tells his companion here, "Our location had been detected before by anyone. Due to this, we have remained unsuccessful to bargain our illegal weapons." On the other side, Spider-Man gets that weapon of which bargaining had been hindered by him. Now he brings it at his home, and he also extracts that weapon's power source. Taking out its power source, Peter Parker and his friend make such a device, which works like global positioning system. Now Peter says to his friend, "We can also detect the bargaining of illegal weapon through this GPS. We can help our country after detecting those locations." Then Peter Parker knows about this, that The whole team belonged to the bargaining of the illegal weapons is present in Washington, D.C. Knowing about the presence of whole team in Washington, D.C., then Peter says he should also go there. Peter has not much amount of money, and there was also no other way to go to Washington, D.C., so he joins his school team again. And he comes to know here that his school team is also leaving to Washington, D.C. for national tournament. Now, Peter Parker, as a Spider-Man, reaches Washington, D.C. joining his school team. It is also seen that Peter Parker and his friend, they both are working on the suit of Spider-Man, sitting in a room. Now it is seen that Peter Parker and his friend had such a device, through which they could detect the location of the illegal weapons. They come to know here that Adrian and his whole team have gone for the great dealing. Because Spider-Man had also known about these facts, he begins to follow that truck where all illegal weapons had been placed. Meanwhile, Adrian appears there in his vulture suit. Coming there, he gets Spider-Man. So Spider-Man falls into the same truck, and that truck is driven to Department of Damage Control. Then Spider-Man comes to know those illegal weapons are nothing else but grenades. Now, Spider-Man had entrapped in a big godown of Department of Damage Control, and he had also no other way to escape. Now he has to wait for the next delivery of weapons till the coming day. And Spider-Man does not waste his time here, and he tries to use his device there. He also tries the new spider web shooters there. He also learns this, how he can attain the power and hold control over his. Then the godown of Department of Damage Control is reopened, because the second delivery of the weapons was reaching there. Then Spider-Man moves away trickily from there, because Spider-Man had awareness about this as the whole truck is filled with grenades. So he goes to his friend in order to share this, but his friends had gone in different directions for visiting. When his friends are moving through the elevator, then a great explosion occurs there. Now, Spider-Man reaches that tower, but he does not find any place to enter that tower. At the same time, he reaches the top of that location. The government and the police were thinking this there. He is some kind of the impressionist, and he has come to our world to harm the humanity. Thinking this, those people begin to fire their guns at Spider-Man. But Spider-Man enters the tower, breaking the glass and using his wisdom. Meanwhile, he knows that Elevator is under the influence because of that explosion, in which his friends had been entrapped. But Spider-Man struggles his best to stop that elevator. And a time comes that Elevator was going to smash with the floor. Spider-Man finally protects that elevator from smashing with the help of his web shooters, where his friends are entrapped. Then a new character named Liz of this movie also appears. The scene moves to that man later, who had been rescued during bargaining by Spider-Man. He asks that man coming there, "Can you tell me, where is the bargaining of Adrian and his whole team going to be held?" At last, that man tells the Spider-Man, there is going to be held bargaining in a ferry. He says that you can stop the dealing of those illegal weapons, dealing if you are willing, but you will have soon to move to that ferry. After this, Spider-Man immediately reaches that ferry now, but Adrian has shown his trick and his dealing is going to start there. In the meantime, Spider-Man appears at that location, and he spoils that weapon with his web shooters. That weapon was the grenade, so it is activated there. Then some emitting laser from that weapon has that ferry. Now the ferry had halved now, and all passengers begin to fall into the water. All goods of that ferry also begin to fall into the water. Now, Spider-Man tries to fix those split part of the ferry with his hard struggle and web shooters. But Spider-Man is seen unsuccessful of doing this task. At the same time, Tony Stark, who is identified Iron Man, enters here. He also tries to repair that ferry, taking out the rocket cells from his pocket. At last, that ferry is fixed. Spider-Man and Iron Man become successful of repairing that ferry. After this, Iron Man fixes the whole ferry, and he also repairs the both parts. Now the ferry had halved because of the Spider-Man. Due to this, many people were going to lose their lives. For this cause, Iron Man shows his fury on Spider-Man, and he also talks about taking back his suit from the Spider-Man. But Spider-Man clears to him, "I am nothing without this suit." Tony Stark says to Spider-Man here, "If you are nothing without this suit, then you don't deserve this suit." Saying this, Tony Stark leaves that place. Later, the scene moves on the character Peter Parker's normal life. Now, Peter Parker wanted to lead his normal life, so he asks Liz for dancing here. Liz says to him that, "You may visit my home to pick me up." Now, Peter Parker reaches Liz's house directly, getting ready. He comes to know after reaching the house of Liz that Liz's father is not anyone else but Adrian. It means that the antagonist of this movie, Vulture. Adrian also tells Peter Parker here that my pursuit is different while my friendship is on the opposite side. You will face the bitter consequences if you try to interrupt my affairs. Then, Liz's father, Adrian, leaves both of them on the dancing location. Peter Parker had detected it here. There is going on a great plan in the mind of Adrian. So he leaves the dance party, leaving Liz alone there. Now, Peter Parker had not the possession of the Spider-Man suit, and he had given his suit to Tony Stark. So he wears his old suit and gets ready to fight with Vulture. Then the partner of Adrian, named Jackson, he had put on a tool on his hand, which can hit someone with full speed. So it will be called here a Shocker. So a great fight is held between Spider-Man and Shocker here. But the Spider-Man was being observed as a defeater, because he had not his genuine suit. Spider-Man's friend comes there at the same place. Now he helps Spider-Man to defeat Shocker. At last, Spider-Man defeats Shocker after a long fight. After this, he begins to go after Vulture. Then, Vulture is shown at the same place. From Department of Damage Control, he was carrying illegal weapons by plane after stealing them. But Spider-Man was on that airplane now. So their fight begins in the space. And that airplane is crashed on the Earth during both of their fight. In spite of this, Vulture does not accept his defeat. He was moving away, grabbing the illegal weapons that he had placed in a big box. Now Vulture's suit had also been mostly torn because of the crashing of the airplane. Seeing all this, Spider-Man defeats Vulture there. Now, Spider-Man ties Vulture or Adrian there, and he leaves him there so that police may arrest him. After a moment, police arrive there. Police also discover that box where those illegal weapons had been placed, and Vulture is also seized by the police officers. Now the scene moves to Liz from here, whose father, Adrian, had been seized by the police. She leaves her high school and says to Peter, I will never come to school again. Then Tony Stark is seen who calls Peter Parker to him. And he tells him, now you are able to be a perfect Avenger. Now you can join our team. But Peter rejects this offer to Tony Stark here. He says, no, I want to lead my normal life. Saying this, he moves away. Peter's mother also knows about this as he reaches the home, that her son Peter Parker is the real Spider-Man. After this, Adrian is seen who was in the prison now. He encounters another prisoner there who asks, do you know who is real Spider-Man? But Adrian does not expose anything to him about the Spider-Man. And he also keeps it secret that Peter Parker is real Spider-Man. And this movie completes on this happy ending scene here.